All right, hopefully everybody can see my screen, see my deck. You should see a nice slide with Resound at the top, get a personality, differentiate your brand in a sea of sameness. If you're not seeing that, would you hop in the chat and let Chris know? Chris is our ops guy and all sorts of other things, but today he is manning the controls, making sure everybody is getting what they need out of this webinar. So I'll do a quick intro. So I'm Mike Jones, a managing partner and CEO of Resound. So I'll be leading today's webinar and going through personality. What is a brand personality? Why is it important? How do you craft one? And then what do you do with it, right? So that's what we're going to be covering today. I'll get a little bit more into that in the agenda here in a couple minutes. Thank you guys for joining us. Hopefully this is a really helpful process and webinar for you. Feel free at any time, jump into the chat, let us know questions you have. If something sparks an idea, just hop in there. Chris will be handling that and then pinging me, and we'll do a little Q&A right at the end. So I might not be able to get to all your questions as we're going because I don't want to like hold everybody up. I know people have got places to go, things to do, so we want to get through this as efficiently as possible. But there'll be some time at the end for those of you who've had questions. Hopefully we can get to those. So just feel free to pop in there, throw a question up, throw a comment. Let us know if you're having any issues, if something technical happens. Hopefully everything's smooth from here on out. So yeah, so I want to start with just a little bit about Resound, just so everybody's clear. Hopefully most of you know who we are, but if you don't, Resound is really, our organization is fundamentally based on a belief. And that belief is that because people are individually intrinsically remarkable, that the organizations that they create are remarkable too, right? So this like kind of sense of like remarkableness that our own innate personalities and identities bring to the table, our organizations that we create should also have that. But I found, and our team has found, that most organizations, a lot of them don't really act like that, right? They don't really see that that is true in their own organization, or at least don't recognize that they can be remarkable and that they really should express that in everything they do. So that's really what our company does. We help organizations figure out what makes them remarkable and then how to communicate that to their audiences in a really compelling way to build long-lasting relationships. So all of that is based on relationship building, and we feel like that is the fundamental building block of all business, is building relationships. You know, and if you look at any stakeholder group in a business, it's all really comes down to relationships, whether that's with your staff and employees, whether that's with your customers ultimately, or whether that's with your shareholders and your ownership, or if that's with your partners and vendors. Like all of those are really key relationships, and when they're all humming and working together, business goes really well. But that means that you have to understand yourself first. You have to understand your organization first. So we do that, and then we implement that, right, through design, writing, video, and some other services. So when we talk, we say these are the things we do. We do brand strategy, identity development, content strategy, website and collateral development, and video production. A whole long list of stuff and things. But really what we're trying to do is help organizations find their identity and tell their story in a really compelling way. So hopefully that helps kind of set the stage. We've got a few clients that maybe you know of, maybe you don't, that we've worked with over the years in different ways, but all wrapped around like finding that identity and telling that story. We've been in business now for over 10 years, actually. We just celebrated our 10th anniversary in January. So we've been doing it a little while, and we've figured some things out. And one of those things I'm really excited to talk about is personality traits. I'm realizing right now that this agenda is not correct. So we do have an agenda today. So number one, we are going to talk about what's a brand. We're going to talk about number two, why it's important. And number three, we're going to talk about personality traits and how that fits into your brand and how to craft them. And then lastly, we'll talk about what do you do with them? What are those next steps? So that's today's agenda. So we just have to kind of set the stage and make sure everybody's all on the same exact page here. So we want to make sure that everyone is coming with the same definition of brand. So I'm going to set that up right now. So a lot of people are like, oh, a brand, it's like a name, right? It's what you're called. It's kind of that first piece of identity. These are some amazing brand names. I mean, when you think about these in their categories, they're almost used synonymously with any product in that category. So I can't tell you how many times like My kids in my house are like, hey, go grab a Kleenex. And I can't remember the last time we actually bought Kleenex brand. We usually buy Puffs, but we still call it a Kleenex, right? And Frisbee, I mean, even the word popsicle is a trademark brand name. And yet when we think about those things, we say, is that a brand? We go, well, it is a brand, but brand means something more, right? It feels like it means something more. So maybe it's like, it's the name and the logo. It's the mark, right? It's the symbol of your brand. These are certainly some very iconic symbols for some very iconic brands. And yet when we think about these and we were just like pluck them out of context, right? If we were to see the swoosh and we had never heard of Nike before and we had no context for it, if we hadn't like seen ads from them or really just never interfaced with their organization, all we saw was that swoosh, we wouldn't really know what it meant, right? Maybe there's some kind of connotation that's intrinsic to the swoosh itself, right? Movement, maybe a check mark, like you did it, it's done. But you really wouldn't get that, I don't think. Like you wouldn't fully get what that brand means. So obviously there's more to it, right? There's more to the brand than just the logo or even just the name, right? So maybe it's more. It's like, okay, now we got to start communicating. We got to give people something more to latch onto to really understand what our brand is all about. And a tagline's a great way to do that. Just do it. Probably one of the most famous taglines of all time. Interestingly enough, a tagline created for a 3-year campaign, right? The concept, the campaign that really launched that tagline, that the creative brief said, hey, we're going to do this campaign. We're going to run it for about 18 to 36 months. You're going to see how it does. And out of that came this tagline, just do it, which has been so powerful that it officially became their campaign for more than 3 years. It became an official Nike campaign for 10 years, ran an entire decade as an official advertising campaign. And even after they like moved on to other campaign taglines, you still see this tagline show up in a lot of places in their marketing. That's how powerful that tagline is. And yet if we were to take this tagline and pull it out of context again, right? That's all we knew about Nike. It wouldn't really give us the full picture, the full capacity of their brand, right? There's still something more. So maybe it's like all the advertising that goes in, right? It's the commercials, it's the marketing deliverables that show up. It's all the communication that brand puts out into the world. And I think that's maybe getting closer, and yet it still feels like there's something missing. We know brands that all they do is advertise, and it feels flat, right? It feels like there's something missing. It feels like, yeah, it's a brand, but it's not a complete brand. What is it that's missing? Well, maybe it's actually the product and the service, right? So we can have a name, we can have a tagline, we can have a logo, we can have advertising, communication, but we have to have a product and a service that actually delivers on the promises that those other things bring to the table. We can't just be communication, right? We have to actually deliver value that someone in exchange says, here's some money, right? And yet, even when we package all that stuff up, I think we're getting really close to the definition of a brand. It still feels like there's something just not all the way there, right? Feels like, yeah, okay, I understand the product, but Apple means more than the watch. Apple means more than an iPhone. Apple means more than just a computer. There's something more, right? Even a Facebook, right? Like maybe this one's edging more towards like the brand is the product, but I mean, even Facebook, right? They have multiple products. They have Instagram, they have WhatsApp, they have the Facebook.com experience. And yet their brand stands for something more, right? And when we think about Starbucks, I think this is a really easy example of something that, you think about things that Starbucks puts their name on, you can't really pin it all down. You can't just say like, oh, well, Starbucks is a coffee shop, right? No, like they're in your supermarket, right? On the store shelf. So they're obviously more than a coffee shop. So what are they? What is Starbucks? It's something more, right? Okay, so little joke here. So maybe it's when you get your logo tattooed on somebody's arm. I was actually one of my early clients in my career. I did a logo for him, and he was so in love with it. Hip hop artist, and of course he's got to put the logo on his arm. And I was like, yes, check that box. Okay, that joke aside. But yeah, like brand is like, it's all that stuff, and yet it's something more. It's almost like there's an ethos behind it, maybe. Or maybe a better way to say is your brand is really your identity. And when you think about yourself, right? So for a moment, let's think about our own personal identities. When we think about our personal identities, we are not what we do, right? Yes, sometimes I think we fall into traps sometimes of thinking of ourselves as what we do. Like, oh, I'm the CEO of a brand agency, right? But that doesn't fully describe everything that I am, right? That doesn't describe my belief system. That doesn't describe my philosophy of life. That doesn't describe my family and my other roles that I play as a husband, as a wife, sorry, as a husband and a father. Oh man, you can tell that I didn't get a lot of sleep last night.
Because you're also a dad.
Because I am a dad, and my son has been super sick. So all my kids have been super sick. So anyway, yeah, as a husband, as a father, and the other relationships that I have in my life, like I exhibit a lot of different things, and I have a personality that's even independent, maybe from some of those things, maybe more intrinsic to just me, right? And a sense of identity that's deeper than just the role that I play when I walk into when I roll into work in the morning, right? And I think organizations are the same, right? We have identities around our organization. They're maybe harder to pin down, right? It's maybe a little easier to pin down your own identity. Still takes some work for sure. But when you talk about an organization, you're talking about a much more complex organism in some ways, right? Like it's a bunch of people whose combined kind of purpose and set of values and life experience and roles all play together to create that identity, right? And so we talk about like it's really who you are as an organization. So if we're talking about a brand, we're talking about an organization, something more than just a product, and we'll get to that in a minute. And it's certainly very complex, right? We talked about like there's a lot of different players involved. There's a lot of different pieces. There's kind of the philosophy of business and how do we view the world and the ways in which we want to help people, in particular our customers, right? How do we want to do business? What are the behaviors that we want to establish in our organization? What's the culture we want to build? And what's the like ultimate impact that we want to have on the world beyond even just our customers, right? Do we have a purpose beyond just making a buck? What is that? What does that look like? How do we do that, right? And so there's a lot of like soul searching, right? And we got to like really get to the core of our apple. And sometimes we look in the mirror like the cat does here, and we think we're the lion. But when we really put the mirror up and we really take down all the blinders, we realize like, oh no, we're actually a cat. And that's okay, right? So there's a lot of work involved, and that's kind of the point I'm trying to get across. This isn't an easy process, and it's complex, right? Like when you talk about your own identity, at some level, the parts of your identity really are almost like your DNA, right? Yes, your experiences and your environment growing up play a major part in your own identity and the context in which you find yourself in now. And yet some of our identity is really just intrinsic to who we are from the moment we're born. Right? That DNA level stuff has a major impact. And I think organizations, in a metaphorical sense, right, have DNA. They have some like intrinsic context that they come to the table with that is really hard to change. And when you do, it's like messing with DNA. And a lot of times when you mess with DNA, what do you get? You get mutations. And usually those aren't good. Even with some of the like gene splicing that's going on now, most of the outcomes so far have been very negative, right? They're trying to create positive outcomes by messing with DNA. And yet, even though we have technology to do it, we can insert DNA and take DNA out. It's really hard. And usually the outcome is not great, right? Lower life expectancy for these organisms that they're doing it to. The things don't last as long, right? Because there's something intrinsic that really works with the natural DNA that you have. When you start messing with it, you start getting some weird, funky stuff happening. I think organization is the same way. Like if you can really find that DNA, that really intrinsic identity, now you can start to shape your context around that rather than trying to mess with the DNA itself. And like all DNA produces growth, right? It matures. We don't stay static. We don't start as a seedling and end as a seedling. We go for maturity. And I think organizations are the same way. And I want you to think about growth in maybe a little different way than sometimes you think about it. I think a lot of times when people say growth and they say business, what they mean is scale. They mean just size, capacity, quantity. I don't necessarily mean that. Yes, that might be a part of it for sure, but think more about growth in terms of your own life or another organism in the world, in that organisms ultimately aren't looking for scale necessarily. Their growth is predicated on maturity, right? Becoming fully developed and ultimately healthy, right? Healthy, reproducing, right? And that they can go out and basically replicate themselves. That's maybe where we can get into some scale conversation. But it starts with maturity, right? And I think your brand is the same way. Your brand starts small, starts maybe a little immature, and that's okay, right? It's okay to be immature when you're simply a seed. But if you've been doing it for a while, hopefully that's beginning to mature, right? You're seeing growth in a healthy way. Not just scale, but like, hey, we're getting deeper. We have a better understanding of who we are. We're more consistent or more complete, right? Those are the kinds of growth that I'm talking about. And ultimately, your brand is like your soul, right? So just like we talk about with our own personal identities, it's very soul level when you really cut through all the BS. And I think organizational brands are similar, that they have kind of an intrinsic soul to them. And finding that is really key. And that means you got to start from the bottom up. And I have a little kind of metaphor to help us think through this process. So think about your brand like the foundation of a house, right? And when you think about the foundation of your house, what do you typically think of? Well, you think of like rebar and slab concrete and, you know, this really thoughtful process up front to level everything out, make sure the drainage is just right. And that foundation is really critical, because if you get any of that foundation wrong, the rest of that house is not going to stand. But it's funny because the foundation isn't really the thing that we're attracted to, right? It's not the thing that we go and we look at first when we walk into a new home that we're thinking about purchasing. We don't go in and go, you know what, before I look at anything else, before I look at the outside, the inside, the kitchen, the bathrooms, the garage, the yard, anything else, I'm going to go check on that foundation. That is what I'm buying this thing for, right? No, you just kind of assume that it's set up well. You're like, hey, everything else looks good, so the foundation must be good too. And yeah, maybe somewhere in the process, eventually you bring in a structural engineer and they go, yeah, it's good, it's good. Or I don't know, but the kitchen's pretty cool, right? And you sell yourself on the kitchen. Been there, done that. So it's not the stuff, right? Like, the foundation isn't the stuff. It's not the super awesome solar infused panels on the roof or the amazing like triple pane windows. It's not the grass out front, and it's certainly not the garage doors made from reclaimed Viking wood. Those are all really cool things, and they're the things that we get really excited about when we're shopping. And it's those kind of things that our customers get excited about. But what if none of them are built on a solid foundation? A brand that has like maybe some cool colors and, you know, we're running some really interesting ads, but doesn't have a firm understanding of who they actually are and what they're really trying to achieve in the world, isn't going to stand for very long, right? It's going to shift. And when the ground shifts around you, you don't have a solid foundation, what happens? All that other crap just comes tumbling down, right? So, and that's why it's like, it's kind of hard to get to your brand. It's sometimes easier to just stop with the product and just kind of like, oh, the brand is really just the product and what we're putting out in the world through our products. But it's like that deeper foundational stuff that we're really talking about. It's easy to interpret a product, right? It's easy to see the windows and see the garage door, see the grass, and come up with some kind of interpretation of what that should look like in the world. But it's a lot harder to interpret the foundation of the brand. That's why you have to spend a little bit more time on it. It's why you have to dig a little deeper and why you need a process. So, okay, we are all on the same page about what we mean by brand, right? Okay, so now we got to cover, well, why does it matter? Because that's always the next question, right? Well, so what? Great, you have a foundation, you got a brand, whatever. Like, maybe I just don't need that. Maybe I just got to pump more ads and that's all it takes, right? Well, okay, I'll I'll let you play that little devil's advocate for a second in your head, and then I'm going to squash it. All right. So I got a few examples for you here. So here's the first one. You are in, you're going to go get a minivan. All right. Just hang with me on this. You have to go get a minivan. We're not shopping outside of the minivan category.
Suspend your disbelief.
Suspend your disbelief, even though I know you want that SUV. All right. But you're getting a minivan. You're convinced that the minivan is the right way to go, and you got two choices. You've narrowed it down to the Chrysler on the left and the Volkswagen on the right. Which do you choose and why, right? And when I do this in workshops, a lot of times, most people, I would say, the majority, 70, 80% of people say they choose the Volkswagen. And when I ask them why, they say the styling and the German engineering, right? There's a reputation for Volkswagen that comes with that brand. And on the left, a lot fewer people pick the Chrysler. Every once in a while, someone will pick the Chrysler. They're like, oh, you know, they kind of invented the minivan. They were the first one in the market with one. And I go, yeah, that's true. But they don't really have that same resonance for the most part as Volkswagen does for just German engineering, craftsmanship, well-styled, feels good, right? So the next question is, well, what is the actual fundamental difference between these two minivans? Well, and if you take away all the exterior stuff, right, just the styling, which, I mean, anyone can make styling different, right? If you take all that away, you were to strip it down to the drivetrain, transmission, engine, would you be surprised to hear that these two minivans are exactly the same? The one on the left, the Chrysler, was the original minivan that Volkswagen came in licensed from Chrysler, slapped their own body kit on it, and put the Volkswagen logo on it. So in essence, whether you pick the Volkswagen or the Chrysler, what you're actually buying is a Chrysler minivan at its core, right? And yet, which one is more expensive? The Volkswagen. Yeah, we all know that, right? Like, that's not a surprise. It's $10,000 more on average. And so that's like just one case in point of why brand matters is perceived value, right? You can have really almost the exact same product, and the brand establishes a deeper or greater value than the product itself, okay? Here's another example. So we're not talking about value, but here are two brands. In your mind, for a moment, tell me which one is which. You know them, right? You can see these and you go, oh, that one's Uber, the black one's Uber, pink one's Lyft. Obviously, Lyft is a little easier because they put their name right on it. But even Uber with their kind of funky you know it, right? Their branding intrinsically creates differentiation from each other. And that's it, right? Like that's one of the most simple, inane points of why brand matters is differentiation. It simply allows people to know we are us and not them, right? And they are them and not us. So whether or not you have greater value, whether or not you can sell for more, like sell your products for more money than them, that's not the point, right? The point is we are us and not them. And so you have to make a choice as a customer. Am I going to go with them or am I going to go with you, right? Instead of, I don't know the difference between you, right? Friction, confusion in the customer's mind will create a stoppage in their decision-making process. And so one of the points of differentiation, like what does that do for you in the end, is it makes it easier for the customer to make a decision. Not necessarily, this point won't help them make a decision for you necessarily. Maybe they like pink, maybe they like black more, although I'd say that's a pretty superficial way to consider branding. I can give you some other reasons why, like between Uber and Lyft, someone might make a decision, right? We think about in the news cycle, what are some of the cultural issues that Uber in particular has been facing over the last 2 to 3 years, right? Their leadership has had lots of issues, sexual misconduct issues within their leadership team and all throughout their company, just some reckless behavior, even like their autonomous vehicle testing killed someone and got them knocked out of the Arizona market from doing that testing. There's just some like issues, right? And Lyft, on the other hand, has better positioned themselves as kind of the cultural good guys within their market. Like, we're out to help people. We want to have an impact on our communities beyond just like helping drivers and helping our customers get from point A to point B, and having this more feel-good experience. And that's a point of differentiation. You don't have to agree with one or the other. You don't have to be like, well, I agree with Uber and I still think they're a good company. It doesn't really matter what you agree with or not. It's simply that they're creating a point of differentiation, right? And that helps customers to make a decision. Because it's better that they make a decision one way or the other than to sit on the sidelines and never make a decision. All right. Last example before I get to a couple stats to help back this stuff up. Okay, so last example. Here we go. You all know this brand. We all know Nike, right? What are they known for? What product line are they most known for? They're known for shoes, right? Specifically athletic shoes. And I'd argue probably more basketball than anything else. They've done such a great job with kind of the Air Jordans and that brand and really pushing that basketball has really become their kind of go-to basketball shoes in particular. And yet their product lines are just massively diverse, right? Here's just a small sample of the different kinds of products that you can get with a Nike swoosh on them, right? And if I pick most of these, right, maybe not the shoes, but if I pick the basketball, if I pick like the sweatpants, if I pick, are those freaking socks? Yeah, those are socks. If I pick the socks, right, and I were to go like shop that category, I'm going to go look for athletic socks. Would I find a better pair of athletic socks from another brand? Probably. I'd probably even find them cheaper and better, right? And yet Nike has done something with their brand, right? Their brand has done something for them that is really interesting. And that's called loyalty, right? So brands in and of themselves can create loyalty across product lines. You now don't have to be the best in another category. You simply have to be available in another category for customers who already love you in another category or like you or just at least consistently buying from you, right? So if I like your shoes and I wear them all the time, they're stylish maybe, or they perform well, I might be more likely to buy your shorts too, right? It's easier. I don't have to think about it. I already trust you. Think about also repeat purchases, right? So when I'm actually shopping for a car right now, I'm kind of considering replacing my Honda Civic. Guess what I had before this Honda Civic?
A Honda Civic?
A Honda Civic, Chris. And guess what I'm thinking about getting again?
Volkswagen.
No, definitely not a Volkswagen. I'm thinking about another
Chrysler.
Honda.
Yeah.
And why is that? Are they intrinsically better than a Toyota? Well, not according to my mechanic. When I like nail him to the wall and say, what should I get? What's going to be the most reliable car for me? Eventually I can get him to make a decision. He goes, you should get a Toyota. And yet I just like Hondas. They've worked well for me and I trust them, right? And so there's a level of like trust and loyalty built. And I'm not talking like deep, like intrinsic friendship loyalty, like, man, I'm going to go to bat for Honda no matter what they do. No, probably not. They screw up bad enough. I'm going to ditch them in a heartbeat, right? But there's a sense of like, it's just easier to stick with something I already know, right? And that's what brands can do for you. All right, some numbers just to help kind of solidify this. So there's a bunch of surveys here. You can find like the particular survey or study down at the bottom of each slide. But these are really helpful, I think, to understand that there's actually like true stats, true data behind this. This isn't just Mike yakking off the top of his head. So in this particular example, they took a portfolio of what they considered strong brands in this study, the Brand Z Strong Brands portfolio, and they looked at it over a 10-year period. And they went, how did that portfolio of strong brands relate to the S&P? And they actually saw that over that 10-year span, that portfolio grew by almost 125%. Meanwhile, the S&P 500 grew by 52%. And the MSCI World Index grew only by 35%. So exponential growth compared to the rest of the market for strong brands, right? Now you can get into the details of how they rank strong brands versus not strong brands. And I encourage you to go do your homework, dig into all that stuff if you need to. But overall, strong brands outperform shareholder growth of the average company, right? That says something about brand. That says something about the way that they do business because they care about their brand and the way they're building their brand. Some more data. So high strength brands can command an average price premium, often 13% higher than low strength brands and 6% higher than medium strength brands. So when you break down categories and you look at strong versus medium versus weak, strong brands not only have better shareholder performance, but they actually sell products at a higher premium. So that goes to kind of back up our first example, the Volkswagen, the Chrysler. That's not just a one-off example. That's like across categories, all right? And not only will it command higher price, but it'll actually command more volume of sales. High-strength brands affect customers' predisposition to choose a brand, and so they deliver a greater volume of sales than medium or low-strength brand. Really what this means is that your marketing dollars go further, right? If you spend your marketing dollars the right way and building your brand, they'll actually outsell your competitors who are doing the same activity, but not in a brand building way, right? That's awesome, right? So not only are you going to sell more, you're going to sell more efficiently because you are building your marketing around your brand, not just around sales, right? The outcome is still the same. You'll have a higher volume of sales, but that brand produces a power in your marketing, a kind of an unseen force that pushes it further than it would have gone if you had just spent the dollars without thinking about the brand. Ultimately, I would say in a crowded marketplace, and let's be brutally honest for a moment, every single marketplace is crowded. I don't care if you're a startup who's come up with some great intellectual property idea that's never seen the light of day. Unfortunately, you probably have even more work to do because now you have to educate, right? You have to tell people about a new idea that they've never heard of before. Do you think Ford on day one sold a ton of cars? No, he had to change people's minds about cars versus horses. And that wasn't easy, right? Not only that, but we live in a world where whether or not you have competitors, your audience has competition for their attention, right? Everything is vying for their attention. And there's really no open opportunity to grab attention from them that's just unallocated. Their attention is given to something else 24/7. So you are having to carve out of their attention that's already taken up a little slice for you in your brand, right? You've got to go carve out some attention for yourself. And that's why brand matters, right? Because brand wins. Brand creates that sense of like, oh, we actually have something of value that really is going to solve intrinsic problems, is going to cut through the noise of our competition and cut through the noise of just everyday life and really help someone, right? That's what brand does. It wins. All right. So what gives you the best chance of influencing someone's perception of your brand? Now we're getting into a little bit more nuts and bolts. What do we do, right? Well, I would argue you have to tell the truth because there's only one other alternative, right? That is, you fake it, you false it, or you force it, right? And we've seen brands who do this. We see this in our own personal lives with people who do this, right? If they don't tell the truth about who they are, what do? They turn into liars, right? They say, oh, I'm like this, right? I'm going to fake it till I make it. Do we like hanging out with fake it till we make it people? No, we don't. So why would we like brands who are not people actually getting up in our lives who actually are faking it or creating falsehoods or forcing something that just isn't really there, right? Forcing a brand that doesn't actually resonate with who they are, okay? So how do you find the truth of your brand? I would argue there's really 4 fundamental questions to build in your brand. If you can answer these 4 questions really, really well, then you've done a lot of work already to form the foundation of your brand. So it's, where do you want to go, right? What's your vision? What do you want to do in the world? Where do you want to take your organization? What do you want to see it accomplish, right? And then what do you really value? How do you perceive the world? What are the fundamental beliefs of how you want to do business, the way in which you want to interact with people, really the like yeses and nos of your business decisions and behaviors. And then thirdly, and the one we're really going to focus on today, is how does it all feel, right? What's that personality that you're going to bring to the table? What's going to make you interesting to your audience? And in an interesting, not just for interesting's sake, but interesting because it resonates with who you are, right? It resonates with those values. It resonates with that vision. And then finally, wrap it all up and put it in a story. How do you tell that story? What story are you going to tell? So those are the 4 fundamental questions, and there's 4 tools, I think, that come out of those. That's your vision, your core values, your personality traits, and your brand story. And we're going to be focusing today on personality. All right, personality traits. So what are they? And just a side note here, if you're looking for help, we're going to be referencing the worksheet throughout this little webinar. So if you want to go grab it, it's rsnd.co/personality-wksht or worksheet. the shortened version. So that'll help kind of get this process. You don't have to do the worksheet today, but if that's helpful, you can go grab that and start working on it yourself. So personality traits, what are they? Right? Your brand's attitude. They're kind of the way that you interact with the world. It's how you relate to your customers. It's very relationship based. And I think very much like in our own lives and our own personal identities, we have a specific personality. I think organizations should too. It's hard, right? Because you're talking about a lot of different personalities that make up your organization. But if you can really narrow it down and find something specific, find a specific personality to communicate with and interact with your customers with, and even interact with the other relationships in your organization, like your staff, like your partners, vendors, and shareholders, you're actually going to build some consistency and some specific pointedness to your brand that you wouldn't otherwise, right? I think personality traits are just a really great tool to provide a pointed way of communicating to the world. It doesn't have to be a certain kind of personality, right? It just needs to be the right personality that's specific to you so that you come across as someone who has a specific personality rather than just we're just everything to everyone, right? That doesn't resonate with people. That doesn't make you stand out. That doesn't help you to resonate with your customers, okay? And ultimately, you're looking to elicit an emotional response. Non-specific personalities don't elicit emotional responses. Specific personalities do, right? We can think about that in our own personal lives, and I think brands that understand this do this really well, right? They elicit an emotional response because they have a specific way of approaching the world. All right, so here's the exercise. I have 2 exercises for you. I'm going to walk you through them. They're in the worksheet, so you can go take that home, do that on your own. So we're going to fly through this really quick. We're not going to have time to actually do it right now, but I'm going to walk you through the steps so at least you have kind of a guide through which you can run these exercises. So the first one is called which represents. All right, so we're going to ask a question, and there's going to be some visuals to help us ask that question. And what we're really looking for is not necessarily the answer to the question, but the why behind the answer. And it'll make more sense in a second when I walk you through it. And one caveat, when you're answering these questions, you're answering from the context of your organizational brand, not a specific product or service. This is pretty hard. It's probably the hardest part about this exercise. You're going to have to constantly kind of go, am I answering in terms of my brand, or am I answering in terms of a product or service? Don't think about the way in which you deliver a product or service. Think about it more in the way in which you approach the world as a brand, right? The way that you want to communicate and interact with people. All right, so here's our example one. We have 4 colors up, red, blue, black, and yellow. And if we were doing this for the brand Disney, we would ask, which do you think of these 4 best represents or feels like Disney? So you can say represents Disney or feels like Disney. What we're not looking for, so this is key, what we're not looking for is the answer blue, because blue is the color I see when I put the movie on, right? When the castle comes up at the beginning of the Disney movie, it's blue, typically. That's not the answer we're looking for. We're going, no, which one just in totality of all Disney experiences I've ever had feels the most like Disney? Some people might say yellow, right? Because it's full of energy and brightness and positivity, all right? Some people say red because it's also full of energy, but has more power and maybe magic to it. Some people might say black because it's mysterious and it's kind of got this I don't know what they're going to do next kind of feel. What's really cool is every single one of those answers is right? It's the why that we are trying to uncover. It's not, is it black? Is it yellow? Is it red? It's why did you say yellow? Why did you say black? Why did you say red? Okay. Maybe you said blue. And as long as you didn't say because I saw it or their logo is that color, then I'm good with it. Right? We're not talking about the visual attributes of the brand. We're talking about which one best represents the totality of the brand and feels like the brand. Sometimes maybe that's their main color, but I'd challenge you to think a little bit more deeply than that.
But this is like a tool to uncover the why, right?
Correct. Yes. So this whole exercise is a tool to uncover the why behind your brand, right? All right. So we did it for Disney. Now you could do it for your own brand. So think about your own organizational brand. which of these 4 colors best feels or best represents your brand? All right. So I'll give you a second on this one. Just kind of think about that. Maybe come up with an answer and then write down why. Why did I pick that color? Why did I pick yellow? I don't see yellow in all of my marketing, so why did I pick that? And I bet it'll be something like, we're friendly, or we're engaging, or we're bright. But it doesn't really matter what the answers are as long as you write them down, right? As long as it feels right, okay? This is a great exercise to do with a team, with a group of people, because then you start to kind of get various answers from different people and looking for like, oh, you said that too, and I agree because I said this. Even though I picked a different color, I said it for the same reason, right? I had the same why. That's really helpful. If you're doing it on your own, that's okay. Maybe gut check it with somebody when you're done and say, hey, afterwards, kind of go through this exercise with them and say, hey, I came up with this color because of these reasons. Do you think these reasons really represent our brand? Are we energetic? Are we humanistic? Or, whatever words come to mind. Okay. All right. So there's a few more exercises that are just like this. So maybe it's take sodas, right? Think about which soda best represents or feels like your brand and why. Again, the most important answer is why. Okay. So I'm not going to do all these with you right now, but you can come back and do them. They're in the worksheet. It's very easy to do. All right. You can do the same thing with superheroes. I love this one. This is always fun. You get some really interesting answers from this. I like this one in particular because you start to get towards an actual personality. Like it's a little bit harder to be like, oh, a soda, does it really have a personality? I guess it kind of does, right? And here you can go, superheroes. I know they have a personality, right? And I can resonate a little bit more. You can do this with shoes. If my PowerPoint will work. Nope. There we go. This is another fun one. Really interesting answers that come out of this. Like, why'd you pick flip-flops? And then they say why, and you're like, oh, yeah, like I could totally see that, right? Especially with a group, you start getting some conversation going around like, oh, yeah, you picked flip-flops, but I picked sneakers, but really it was just like the same reason that we both picked those things. We just interpreted it a little bit differently, all right? And then, of course, my ultimate favorite, pick your drink, right? Which drink best represents or feels like your brand? What kind of experience do people have with your brand? Does it feel more like a whiskey or is it more like a beer? And why is that? Sometimes when people say beer, a lot of times what I hear is like, oh, we're very approachable. Everyone likes to have a beer. There's a lot of different styles. We have a lot of variety. We've got varietals. Maybe wine is a little more snooty, right? We feel a little bit more snooty. Maybe martinis are a little more classy and fun, and whiskeys are just like salad and maybe a little more traditional. But I don't know. Everyone interprets these a little differently. Some people pick whiskey and they go because it's like super trendy. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. They are super trendy right now. And maybe that's who you are. Are you kind of a trendsetter? Are you always looking to kind of establish out in front of everyone? Is that part of your personality? Right? All right. So now you can distill your brand's personality traits thus far, right? So if you've gone through all those exercises, after that, kind of group them together. Take all those words that you use, all those personality traits. I like to just throw them all up on a whiteboard, right? Just write them all on a big whiteboard and kind of look for like, oh, these ones kind of relate to this one over here and they're the same. And these feel like the same thing. Start grouping them. It'll help to kind of condense them down because you'll probably have like 20 or 30 at this point. And that's just too many. You want to get these down to probably like, half dozen maybe. That would be a little bit more manageable for the next exercise. All right. So the next one is called the trait list. So you'll find in the worksheet, and this is where you'll definitely need the worksheet to do this because I'm not going to go through all of them. You're going to find a whole bunch of pages of these pairs of words, right? Like amazing and tame, or animated and meek, arrogant and calm. And a lot of times you'll find if you sit there and really think about all of them, a lot of them are opposites, right? Or they're juxtaposed to each other. This exercise is a little bit more of a gut check, right? So the first step is you're going to go through all of those pairs of words, and in each one, you have to cross out one word, right? There has to be one word in every single pairing that you just go, nope, that's not us, right? So that would be the first thing. You take a few minutes, go as fast as you can and go gut check, right? No, 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 not that one, not this one in this pairing, not this one in this pairing, not this one in this pairing. You have to go through all the pages and do that, right?
And in our workshops, we give people what, like
I think we usually do
a
about
minute or
5 to 7 minutes. It takes
Okay.
about 5 to 7 minutes to get through the whole list. If you give people a minute, they start freaking out. Because I'll be
set
like
your
30
timer.
seconds. They're like, oh, 1 page. I haven't gotten to page 4 yet. Yeah,
So-
use a timer, set a timer, make yourself go fast. Because again, you're looking for gut responses. Don't sit there and try to analyze them. If you do, you'll never get through it. Just go, there has to be a no in every box, right? I have to cross out one of these. So between these two words, which are we not, right? Cross that one out, okay? Then you do it again, all right? Now look at the ones that are left in each box. You don't have to cross one off in every box, because if you did, there'd be none left if you're doing your math. But you have to go through and you have to go, I don't think that's us, right? If it's not a like, yes, that's us, you have to cross it out. If it's like a, well, I like how that sounds, then you have to cross it out. If it's like a, well, I wish we were, then you have to cross it out. If it's like a, well, maybe on some days, then you have to cross it
You
out.
still have to cross it out.
Yeah, right. You're looking for like, what is not a yes? That's totally us. That word nailed us, okay? Hopefully by this point, you get through this step, you've crossed out a lot of words, right? There's not a whole lot left. Now you have some that are left, maybe circle them or pull them out, put them up on a whiteboard and compare them back to the previous exercise with all the images, right? That's why it's important to pull out all the words. Put them all up somewhere where you can see them all, probably a whiteboard, or take some Post-it notes or put them in a shared document and go through those lists and go, where do I see similarities? Maybe there's 2 words, maybe there's 3 words, maybe even there's a whole group of like 5 or 6 words that are really all talking about the same thing, right? Put them together, start to group them down and get them as close to like a finite number of groups as possible. What I would encourage you to do is look for like 5 groups maybe. 3 would be even more awesome. That's pretty hard, but 3 to 5. If you stray into 6, I think you're pushing it. If you're at 7, you need to get something out of there, right? You're probably straying too far. The reason for that is, remember how we talked about your personality, the more specific you can make your personality, the more impact it's going to have. If you have 7 personality traits, it's going to be really hard to deliver on all those consistently. You're probably going to find yourself delivering on 3. And in reality, it's those 3 that you really need to find, right? So don't worry about like those extra 4. You're like, oh, well, I kind of wish we were more of this, right? Right? Stick with the 3 to 5 that you're like, nope, these are us. These I can manage. I can really work with these. And we'll talk a little bit more what that looks like in day-to-day work. But so group them. Try to find similar words. Put them into groups. And then, come on, slide deck. Yeah, there we go. Then on those, I want you to mark current or want to or aspirational, right? So maybe you've gotten it down to 5 groups of words. Which ones are like, yep, we deliver on that personality right now. We do that pretty well. Like that comes across in a lot of our communication, that comes across in our behavior. If I were to go ask customers, they go, yep, that sounds like you. And then these other 2, I don't know. I don't think we really deliver on those very well. Maybe they're a little bit more aspirational or they're buried. Maybe they come out certain points, but they're not consistent across all of your communication, right? That's really helpful to kind of know which ones you lead with and which ones you're like, okay, I got to really work on these aspirational ones to make them more consistent across our entire organization and in everything that we do, okay? And again, you're looking to get it down to that 3 to 5. All right. So the starred ones become your major brand personality traits. Hopefully you got about 3 to 5. And all those other words that you came up with that grouped in with them, use those as supporting words, right? I'd even encourage you, and we'll talk about this in the next step, right? Write sentences using those supporting words to help flesh out what you mean. So here's an example. If I said one of our brand personality traits is polished, Well, there's a lot of different ways to interpret that. So one way to help your team interpret that, or anyone using the personality traits to interpret it, is go, well, what do I mean by that? Well, we are highly invested in improving our clients' business performance, right? So that's a statement that helps get across what we mean by polished. Maybe those are more behavioral statements or stylistic statements about like, how do we do things? In what way do we communicate? I'd even encourage you get a lot deeper than just statements, like maybe start writing descriptions of them. If it takes a couple paragraphs, great, do it. Write words, right? Like these are the words we use to exemplify the word polished, that personality trait. These are the things that showcase that we're polished when we communicate. Maybe it's even like saying, hey, like we triple check every piece of communication before it goes out the door because we want to deliver on being polished. Okay. Another example might be enthusiastic, right? If that's a personality trait, we need to explain that. What does that look like? We're really excited. So there's excitement, right? About helping our customers lead better lives. So it's not just like we're enthusiastic about everything. It's like, no, we're particularly enthusiastic about one thing, and that is helping our customers lead better lives, right? Get as specific as you can. You know, if you can put a category on that, in what way do you help them lead better lives? Put that in there, but flesh it out. What does it look like? All right, so now what? Okay. All right, so here's the last tool that you can use to develop out your personality traits. I really like this one because I think it really puts some kind of meat on the bones of your personality. All right, so you can ask who or what, based on those 3 to 5 personality traits, who or what best represents my personality traits in the flesh, right? So maybe there's a character or an object or a place or maybe a combination of those things out in the world, whether it's fictional or real, that helps flesh out who you are, your personality. So that when you're creating, you're not just thinking about these specific words and the statements you wrote, but I can actually go, oh, I can think about that character or that place, and I can draw from that as inspiration to help me have that consistent personality. So here's an example. We might have these 5 personality traits: noble, confident, uncompromising, inspirational, and principled. And we did a little brainstorm and we came up with different ideas, and we landed on, in our little fictional personality trait company, our company with personality, right? We landed on William Wallace from Braveheart, right? He is noble and confident and uncompromising, inspirational and principled, right? And so now when we deliver on our personality, we now have kind of someone out already existing in the world we can draw from as inspiration to help us create consistently a personality that's noble, confident, uncompromising, inspirational, and principled. That doesn't mean that everything has to be blue because he has blue paint on his face, right? Use it as a point of inspiration, not a template, right? That also means you're not going to communicate in a Scottish accent all the time, all right? Like you got to be true to your own personality, your own identity as an organization. But this can become a helpful way of like, well, when I write this sentence for my brand and I am these things, is this the way that William Wallace would say it? Does it feel like William Wallace? No one has to like read it and go, oh, it's William Wallace, right? But if you were to show them this and they went, oh yeah, I could totally see that, right? That's what this tool is for. It's an internal tool, not something you need to show customers, right? They shouldn't get that, right? But it becomes an internal tool for you to internalize and really flesh out what that personality feels like, okay? So this is now the spirit of your personality traits, right? Okay, so what's next? We're like, great, Mike, I have these personality traits. I got this list. What the heck do I do with it? I don't know. All right, I have some ideas for you. Well, one is, before you get too settled on those personality traits, I really encourage you to validate them. Don't just assume that because you did the work up front through the worksheet and through some of these exercises that these are like set in stone. You need to make sure that they actually resonate with all the relationships in your organization. So go run them by key staff. Talk to customers and say, hey, do you feel like these personality traits resonate with you? Do they feel like us? A lot of times the feedback you're going to get is, yeah, but I would phrase it differently. I would use a different word. Tell me more about what you mean by that. Oh, Yeah. As you kept explaining it, you said it a different way. And I like that. That feels more like you. So what you're going to do through validation is, one, double check that you actually got it right. Like, are these things actually things that we are? Probably they are, because you know your brand. Hopefully you know your identity somewhat, right? Through the exercises, it'll flesh out. And number two, you're going to find the right ways to communicate it. Ones that really resonate with staff, with customers, with vendors, and other stakeholders, right? So if they don't resonate, you need to go back and revise them. And if they do resonate, you still need to refine them, right? Don't just run with the first set of personality traits that you come up with and the first set of statements. Refine them, write them again. Maybe do a little search on thesaurus.com. Wordnik, WORDNIK.com is a great tool. I love that tool for coming up with related words, and it's kind of like a Wikipedia for words. It's pretty cool. All right, what else can you do? Well, turn your personality into action, right? Because actions always speak louder than words. So don't just like put them out there and say, hey guys, here's our new personality traits, but actually think about like, how can we deliver on these, right? I think one key way to do that is start infusing them into all of your communications. It's probably the easiest way. It's the most direct way to start really getting your personality into stuff, right? Think, hey, if we're going to design something, if we're going to write something, did we run it through the filter of our personality, right? Does this sound like these personality traits? Does this feel like these personality traits? And really steep your marketing in it. That's probably the easiest place in your organization to start doing that. I wouldn't stop there, but that's an easy place to start. And then share it, right? Like create some documentation around your personality. Put some verbal and visual guidelines together that reflect your personality. How do we communicate with words and pictures and visuals in a way that's inspired by this personality? And give those to your marketing team, your creative team, or if you've got an outside partner or an agency that helps you do that, contractors, freelancers, give them those tools. They need those tools in order to execute your brand activities in a way that's consistent, specific, and compelling, okay? And then run all your creative deliverables through these guidelines. Some of these are more marketing related, newsletters, blog posts, website content, brochures, and collateral, but even like things like voicemail or email signatures or invoices, or even office decor, like how do we lay out our office? What kind of furniture and kind of interior design do we put in place? How do we create our products and our services? How do we deliver on those things? Do they all have the personality running through them? Anything you create, anything, if it's a spreadsheet, is technically a representation of the brand, right? And why not take for just a split second, a moment to say, does this feel like our personality? Would our brand create and deliver this spreadsheet in this way, right? Maybe it's as simple as like, our brand is colorful. I need to put a little bit more color into this black and white spreadsheet. Okay, cool. You delivered on it. It won't take you more than like 5 minutes to do it. And now you've branded, you've actually branded a freaking internal, reporting tool. How cool is that? And then ask yourself some questions. Does this deliverable or piece of content feel like our personality as we've defined it, right? Does it feel like us? What can I do to make it feel more like us? What's something small or simple I can do to push it more towards having personality, right? We're looking for an extreme here because extremes are specific, okay? Then ask yourself, if you create an archetype or a metaphor, does this piece of content or design feel like that archetype? Does it feel like William Wallace? Because he's our archetype. If it doesn't feel like William Wallace, then the next question is, well, why not, right? What can I do to make it feel more like that? That's where visual and verbal guidelines are really helpful. That'll help kind of answer that question for a lot of people in your organization. I'd really encourage you to develop those out after you get your personality traits nailed down. And then be inspired, right? Brainstorm with your teams how you can better express your brand persona throughout all of your organization, not just marketing, but sales, customer service, operations, finance, you name it. There's a place to put personality on it, right? The level at which you do that is probably going to depend on the bandwidth of your team and their own creative prowess and their willingness to kind of push the personality. But the more you push it, the more your brand becomes specific and compelling for all of your customer relationships throughout the entire life cycle of the customer relationship, right? It shouldn't just be in marketing that they feel like you have a personality. And then, man, I got to sales and all the personality went out the window, right? It just became numbers, get the sale, right? Or I got to customer service and like there was no personality there, right? It was just flat and boring because they outsourced it all, right? What if you, even if you have an outsourced customer service team, what if you gave them guidelines that said, as you're thinking about answering calls and putting together scripts, would you consider infusing our personality in it? Can we help you do that, right? You know your personality better than anyone else, so get that brand personality pushed in there. Find small ways to tweak it and give them the tools they need in order to best brand it for you, right? All right, so some next steps, and we're almost done here. Thanks for sitting with me, right? So personality is only one tool in your brand toolbox. I'd encourage you to think about a lot of others: brand vision, values and story, audience segments and personas, doing some market research, understanding your competitors, your tagline and different slogans and mottos that you can come up with to really make your brand come alive within your organization and in your communication. And then ultimately visual and verbal guidelines that really drive all of your creativity through a funnel, a brand funnel, right? Make it specific, make it compelling. If you need help with that, I'd really highly recommend you check out our brand tool, rsnd.co/brand-tool. This is a free assessment you can take you just a couple minutes to get through it. What it's going to do is help you assess, like, hey, we have all these tools that we could be using. Which ones are we using well? Which ones are we not using well? And which ones are we not using at all? And give you some kind of place to kind of, oh, this is where I need to kind of invest a little bit more time in creating some more tools for us to really execute on our brand, okay? So that's a great way to kind of get started. If you're like, I'm just not sure where I need to start with my brand, maturing it, making it better, growing it, that brand tool might be a good place to start. And then lastly, I have to mention, we obviously do this for companies and with companies. So if you want help, like taking a team, your marketing team or your leadership team through some of these exercises, we have workshops that we can put together for you that cover all these different tools. And we can help create that for you, help you guide you on that process. Or if you're small and you're looking for just some one-on-one consulting, we love doing that. And then lastly, of course, we do full service rebrands. So, you know, if you're like, hey, this is a lot of work, we know we need to just start over, we need some major changes in our brand, we can help you, take you through that process. So hit us up if you're interested. Check out our website, resoundcreative.com. And any questions or comments, concerns, stuff that you want to like talk about. I know we're a little over here, so, but we do have, Chris and I have some time. So if we need to take a few minutes and chat, we can do that.
Well, we're waiting in case anybody needs some time to type it in. I was just thinking, you said take things to their extreme.
Yeah.
I think we should add next time maybe a conversation about taking each brand personality trait. I mean, if you really want to have fun with this and actually figure out what would this mean if we took this one trait and took it to its extreme in like Twitter or something.
Yeah.
You know, maybe we're like, maybe we're really kind of understated and polite. Well, if polite is one of your brand values, then maybe take something that's serious and be overly polite about it.
Yeah.
To the point of like almost too polite, but that starts to become like, oh, that's totally fun.
Yep.
I get it.
Yep.
That'll be really engaging for people, you know?
Well, yeah. And when you think about like, what are the major ways you have to like push your personality? Well, typically it's written words and visuals. And in particular with written words, so like take a tweet, for example, you only have so many characters to work with. It's a limited amount of content and you don't know the full context of how they're going to read that, right? It's going to be in a stream of consciousness with a ton of other content they're engaging with. You don't really know exactly who they are, who's following you or is going to see that because someone retweeted it or moved it forward. Think about almost like the way you think about email, right? Email is fairly efficient communication tool, but it lacks personality, right? Video and audio express tonal differences, right? We can really get personality across. We can get kind of emotion and inflection across. But when we're writing an email, we're writing a tweet, we don't have that ability, right? We don't have that capability. And so what can you do to then start infusing it and get that across? Well, you have to go over the top, right? There's a reason why exclamation points are like getting used out the wazoo these days. They've just like blown up on people. And that's because a lot of the communication tools that we now use are text-based. And text-based content or text-based communication doesn't let you communicate emotion. It doesn't let you communicate personality very well, right? And so we find other tools to help us push that. We use emojis, we use exclamation points and funky punctuation, right? We use slang, right, to get kind of a different flavor across. So I think brands can really do that. They can utilize some of those tools, as well as just thinking like, hey, how can I just be more specific to my personality instead of just like hammering out a tweet really quick and being like, I wrote it. Okay, it's ready to go. I think, wait, whoa. I probably wrote that with my own personal personality in mind, right? Because that's my natural default. So now I need to run that through a filter that says, how do I push it towards the personality of our brand, right? So I love your example. Like if our, what was it? It was the
polite.
If we're just like, we are polite, right?
Yeah.
That is one of our personality traits. Well, there's like an extreme you can take that to that, like, especially in like a tweet, is going to come across.
Right.
But if you don't go to that extreme, it'll fall flat, right?
Yeah.
Even your ads, like that's a great place to like take it to an extreme and like really make it interesting.
Oh, ads especially, because you have a little bit of opportunity to explain your headline, in the body copy real quickly, right? Yep. Whereas a tweet, it kind of sits on its own.
Yep.
But yeah, trying those statements out and trying to drive them to their extreme. And it's always more clever when, just to give everybody another second for questions. So I was told one time, your copy is too safe, So I was like, okay. So I started writing 2 versions of everything, 2 versions of ads, thinking, okay, this one will get approved. This one will be fun to write.
Yep.
And then, and so I started all of a sudden, like I started doing that, and everybody was choosing the fun one. I didn't think they would, because I wanted to prove how professional. I get it, but what people really wanted was the fun, even if it was a little edgy,
Yeah. I think that's another really good point. Like professional, well, it might be true that your personality is professional. The reality is, I bet a lot of other people, a lot of other organizations and brands in your category would also say that, right? A lot of times when someone says, oh, our brand is professional, I like to ask them, like, is anyone else in your industry going to, like, how many other brands in your industry would also say that? And if it's like, well, at least 50% of them, then I started going, that's not specific enough, right? That's not a specific trait to your identity. It's just a specific trait to your industry. Right?
It's like being a solar company and then saying, we care about the environment. It's like, well, probably so do all the other solar companies.
Yeah. And it's like, go deeper, right? Stretch that. Well, what do you really mean by that, right? Go use more words than the word professional. Is there a more specific word that you can capture that's like, we don't just mean professional. We mean like, we're like the best, like, and we show up to do the best every single time. I don't even know if that's specific enough.
Right, but reliable, at least that reliability is kind of an attribute of professionalism that you're owning and being specific.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And in any bureaucratic institution, they can be professional, but they're boring bureaucrats, and like they can be actually kind of mean.
Yeah. And I think there's even a way to own boring, right? I think there's a way to take that and be like, we can make that actually interesting.
Ben Stein.
Yep. Ben Stein's a great example of that. Bueller.
Didn't he do some commercials too?
Yes.
Where he used that to,
I'm like, those are great examples, right? And that's why I think like that archetype or metaphor, that character or place or time or thing or object or kind of mash them together, right? Like maybe it's William Wallace in the 21st century pilot. He's a 21st century pilot, right? He's a commercial airline pilot.
I like it.
That happens to be your brand, right? Your brand personality. There's more specificity to that, right? It's more specific if it's William Wallace in a certain time and place doing a certain thing.
Yep.
And then that becomes that kind of specific picture that we can filter stuff through and be inspired by.
Right. Good.
Cool.
Well, we've given you guys enough time to ask questions. So,
Yeah.
and I don't see any. So
No, that's great. Hopefully that was helpful for everybody. And
yeah, thanks so much for joining us, you guys.
yep. Take care.
All right. Later on.